Hey guys, welcome to the weekly video where we answer your questions. If you want to submit a question to be featured on one of these videos, the best way to do that is in the comments section of this video. Alternatively, you can email us or send us a message on Instagram. Details on how to do that is down below, as well as a link to our Patreon if you want to support what we're doing. This week's question comes from a member of our Discord server.
All right.
Which again is a perk of our Patreon membership. So if you want to get connected there, that's how to do that. But this question is, how do you use domestic discipline to defuse arguments?
That's a good one.
So arguments are just another form of communication. And as you develop in your domestic discipline, you want to develop more open, more concise communication to where you can avoid arguments. And with structure and with accountability, that can happen. But when arguments come up, because disagreements are going to happen.
They're going to happen, unfortunately. It's just part of being in a relationship.
It is just part of life, right? And so even Coda and I now, we still have the occasional disagreement. But where it really crosses the line is when my behavior or his, it can go both ways.
It can go both ways, absolutely. It certainly can.
But when one of us starts to become unproductive to the discussion, when behavior starts to become inappropriate and communication breaks down because of that. And that's what we want to avoid, because I am allowed to disagree with Coda.
Absolutely.
I'm allowed to express that disagreement.
Absolutely.
He welcomes discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, the decision is his. And I know that, and I respect that. But I don't always have to agree with it. And I'm allowed to express my disagreement as long as it's being respectful and productive. And I'm not exhibiting behaviors that are not allowed.
What we tried to establish in our relationship is that it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to ask the whys. It's okay to do those things as long as it's respectful. It's not disrespectful to ask why questions, to ask for explanations, to have a discussion. That's the point of that. It's just when it crosses that line of disrespect and into the other areas that Ari was talking about, that's when it becomes a problem and an argument potentially can ensue. But as long as she's coming to me with a concern and is not crossing that line of disrespect, it's good to have that kind of discussion.
So real quick, if the head of household is the one that's getting frustrated and the one that's starting to become unproductive in the conversation, as a taken in hand, it is okay. And obviously establish this within your own relationship to make sure that this is okay within the boundaries that you have. But it's okay for me to just tell Coda, like, I would prefer to talk about this later. Not being accusatory, not pointing out, not saying, you're out of control, I'm not talking to you right now. That's not a good way, but I can just say, hey, can we talk about this in a little bit? Can we talk about this later? Can we take a break?
Yes.
That's one way that I can diffuse the situation. Also, understand as a head of household, you don't have to let yourself get to the point of frustration, because I will say that 9 times out of 10, if Coda is frustrated, it's because I have already started down the road of having inappropriate behavior within the discussion.
This is true.
And so I have told Coda, like, if I am exhibiting inappropriate behavior, call me out on it and deal with it accordingly, but don't let yourself get frustrated about it.
We set up the rules and the boundaries, obviously, for a reason. So you have the power to call it out before you get to the point of frustration. If you get to the point of frustration, it's because you didn't call it out sooner. And it's something that I'm learning. I don't have to wait till she's pushed me to a point of frustration. And if she does, then to me, that's a trigger of, hey, you should have called this out sooner, but you should definitely call it out now because you're getting to the point of frustration.
It's learning where to set those boundaries that you don't end up getting frustrated before you establish that a boundary has been crossed.
Exactly. That can be hard to do.
So as the taken in hand, if I am the one who is crossing those boundaries, if I am the one that's exhibiting inappropriate behavior, which in our relationship, in these hard conversations, if I am shutting down, if I am yelling, if I am being argumentative, if I am picking at details instead of being productive, those are all things that Coda will call out because those are not productive to the conversation and not productive to the overall communication that we're trying to establish. So when the taken in hand is the one that's exhibiting the inappropriate behavior in the conversation, there's a few ways that a head of household can go about handling that. He can stop the conversation right then. He can establish that boundary as soon as it happens and just say, stop. You are exhibiting this inappropriate behavior, whatever it is. I am ending this conversation. We will pick this back up later. And he just puts an end to it. Like, don't allow the taken in hand to continue to yell, nitpick, argue, be disrespectful. Just say, no, we're not doing this.
Cut it off.
Exactly. And when you do that, send your taken in hand to the corner. Let her think about what happened, how she contributed to it. Let her think about why you put an end to that conversation. And then this is the only time that I think that an extended corner time is almost necessary because you have to give enough time for that cool down period and for that reflection. So I would say, if thinking of myself, that's a minimum of like 20 to 30 minutes in that
I
corner.
was just thinking that. So yeah, we were on the same page there for sure.
And after a 20 to 30 minute cool down, you can either come back to the conversation and finish the conversation, or you can punish the behavior and then finish the conversation. But if you are stopping, you're taken in hand mid-conversation and putting her in the corner, there should be an expectation that a punishment, most likely a spanking, is going to be followed up with that at some point, either before you finish the conversation or after.
Absolutely.
And those are kind of the two ways that you can approach it, because like basically the start of that is the same. As a head of household, you have to establish like, no, we're not doing this. We're stopping this conversation. I will not continue to let you yell. I will not continue to let you be disrespectful or rant or belittle or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to continue to allow you to exhibit this behavior. You are going to stop right now. We are not talking anymore, and you are going to the corner. And then whether or not you decide to finish the conversation after that corner time and then conclude with a punishment, or punish beforehand and then conclude the conversation, that part's up to you. Depending on your taken in hand, they may need that punishment in order to conduct themselves appropriately for the rest of the conversation, or they may need the conclusion of the conversation before they can focus and accept the punishment. So you really do have to figure out which approach is best for your taken in hand. But that is how you use domestic discipline to stop arguments, to make arguments less frequent, and to handle inappropriate behaviors even during difficult conversations.
When you set up a domestic discipline relationship, that is done to try to prevent a lot of this stuff, and to prevent it, if it starts, to prevent it from going too far. And so it's just a matter of getting into the habit a little bit and just learning and practicing your domestic discipline relationship. And so when that happens, is just taking these things and trying to act upon them.
And understanding that when you are in a domestic discipline relationship, when your taken in hand has consented to coming under your authority, that you have the power to do these things. You have the power to stop these behaviors, and you just have to figure out what the best way to go about that is.
And you really brought up another good point. Because she consented to it, that's why you have the power. You don't have the power because you're trying to be the dictator and you're wielding it. No, she told you in the very, very beginning, by consenting to this relationship, this is what I want as well. So I'm giving you the power to go ahead and do this as we proceed in our domestic discipline relationship. That is so important to this. It really is.
All right, guys, hope that was helpful. And let us know if you have any questions in the comments, in our email, in our Instagram DMs. Let us know what you want us to cover on these shorter videos. And again, if you want to support what we do, a link to our Patreon is down below.
Appreciate it. Bye bye.